Welcome back to Tech Society, the podcast delivering candid conversations with smart people, tech and business leaders, academics, and more about their big ideas and how they're changing our world. And now your hosts, Alex Dunmo and John Newen.
Welcome to another episode of Tech Society. You are with John and Alex, as always.
Hello.
Hey everyone. Today we're going to talk about gamification. Something customers of ours, clients of ours, constantly ask us about and generally don't understand.
So what is gamification? Is it making games?
I mean, maybe in a philosophical sense, yes.
It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment. I find people say gamification without actually thinking about what it means.
Put it simply, gamification is using game design elements in non-game environments to increase use and hopefully improve the user experience. But generally, it's used to cheaply encourage repetitive behavior.
Well, it's manipulation and psychological techniques to encourage you to use the app more.
Yeah, that's right. Some good examples of gamification would be Duolingo.
So Duolingo is a language learning app which has become very popular. And there's an owl that looks at you sadly if you miss a day of practice, which is actually quite effective.
They also implemented streaks, so reward you for constantly using the app. You know, give you, I think they have experience points from memory.
There's levels, there's leaderboards. Yeah.
So
there's like leagues as well. You get into the...
Yeah. So that's a great example of gamifications. It's kind of like a real-time strategy game where you increase your experience points just by using the app every day. And then there's all kinds of nice buzzy sounds and logo icons and things to reward you for that behavior. What's another good example of gamification?
I think Snapchat has streaks as well. I never use Snapchat, but
no, I'm too old for Snapchat.
I've heard stories.
Which I believe Facebook copied when Snapchat refused to be bought out by them.
Really? That's interesting. Facebook itself their gamification system isn't very obvious. A lot of it's just the constant feedback of more content, but other apps. I think Uber has a basic one with the point system.
Yes. They've got badges as well, don't they?
Yeah. So drivers also collect badges, so do riders as well.
Yep. So that's gamification in a nutshell.
So it's like having a game without the game.
Yeah, it's making a game out of boring business processes.
And the problem is you need, as a client, when you come to us or any other software engineering company and you say you want gamification, you have to know what games are like first. And some people don't, and fair enough.
There's that. There's also the case of you need to build your user interface first and your app first. You can't. So many people want to start with gamification.
Well, because they assume it increases adoption, increases retention.
But if you don't know how your user interface even works, how are you going to gamify it? You're focusing on the cart when you don't have a horse.
So you're saying building gamification after it's on the market, it's been proven.
Yep. So gamification is widely used in marketplaces and productivity apps.
And some cool hybrids as well. I think Pokemon Go is a good example of one, where it's like a game, but you're outside.
Is it a fitness app?
I think when I play Pokemon Go, I totally noticed that I was walking around more and I cared less about the game and I was just getting tired. So for me, it was a fitness app. The gamification didn't make the walking easier, is my point.
But you wouldn't have done the walking without the gamification.
I quit the game very early because I hate walking. And catching Pokemon did not make it more fun for me. Other people got super fit and got outside a lot playing Pokemon Go. So good for them. Gamification works for certain kinds of people. So there's a system called gacha in Japan. And that's those vending machines where you twist that knob and you get like a random ball with something inside it.
Yeah, of course.
There's a huge culture around gacha in Japan, and people will spend so much money hoping they'll get the ball with the thing that they want. It's a collectible, right?
So kind of like analog loot boxes.
Yeah. Actually, it was loot boxes before loot boxes were cool. An interesting example is there's a game recently called Genshin Impact. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Alex.
I'm not. What is it? Genshin Impact?
Genshin Impact.
Oh, yes.
It's a big MMO RPG that's come out recently. It's a gamified game.
Isn't that all MMOs though?
So Genshin Impact is a free MMO with millions and millions of players. Made in China, and it's the artwork is amazing and the storyline is good. The gameplay is pretty good.
Looks very Japanese.
Yeah, but it's not.
Interesting. And Genshin,
they've made, I think, 30 mil now off this free game based purely on gamification of this game. It's basically loot box mechanics to be able to collect characters, and people just pay money because the chances of getting one of those characters is 0.6%.
You get better odds at the casino, right?
Yeah, but people pay truckloads of money for this. And it's a good example of gamification in action, even though it's for a game. It's kind of a strange Inception kind of approach, but it's actually really cool because it's actually a great example of a very profit-driven game that's free.
So, freemium.
Yeah, it's pay to win. These 0.6% characters can annihilate any other character, or annihilate any other, the creatures that you fight.
So it's pay to win, basically, but you don't pay directly.
You pay for chances to win.
Continue paying until it pays off. Personally, I will never play a game that's pay to win. I don't mind games like PUBG and Fortnite where you pay for skins and aesthetic, fun. I guess CSGO as well would be another one like that.
Well, those are all cosmetic things that you pay for. I think Valve made it really popular with the Team Fortress 2 hats.
So I guess I have a real ethical problem with paying money to make a game enjoyable. I don't mind paying $90 up front for a really good game. But if you tell me the game's free and then make me pay just so I can actually win at it, then that feels scummy.
But they see profit, and
profitable.
And it actually works quite well. I
can't argue that. I think there's a successful company in Perth who are pretty famous for making these kind of mobile apps where you get hooked on the gameplay, but you can't actually get very far in the game without continually paying for gems or coins or credits or whatever.
So back on the topic of gamification, how does that tie in? How does gambling tie into gamifying an app? Is it gambling or is it not?
That's an interesting question. I think gambling is definitely gamification. I think you are right in the gray zone in ethics.
Casinos actually call them games, right?
Yeah. And they are like games of chance.
Yeah.
So as soon as you introduce that into software, I don't know, it feels unethical.
But there's the question again where someone asks you, can you please gamify my app? What does it mean? It doesn't necessarily mean games of chance. It could mean badges.
It's collecting badges, competing with other users based on how far you've gotten in the app.
And that's cool. That's ethical. It encourages people to use the app more, but it doesn't actually feed on their insecure gambling or
addictions.
Yeah. So,
and I think there's some really good uses of this technology, like glucose monitors and workout equipment. Where you're so focused on the achieving points and rewards within the software that you forget the pain and annoyance of the thing you're doing.
So back in the day, I was quite into powerlifting when I was a young lad, which is very, very long ago. That was basically it. It was a numbers game where you increase your numbers. You do the same exercises constantly. Squat, your deadlift, your bench press. But the only thing that changes is the numbers that you do, And it was an actual constant grind to get those numbers higher, your 5-rep max.
So do you think wearing a Fitbit or something similar to a Fitbit, where you can actually monitor more numbers, helps people addict themselves to working out?
Before we continue this podcast, here's a message from our sponsor.
We believe that you can create art and beauty with technology. We think big. We move quietly. We are Ninja Software.
Fitness addiction is a real thing, and that was not me. But the Fitbit, I think, has made the ability to gamify other forms of fitness, like cardio, all that kind of other stuff that I never did. And that means that it's like when you go on the treadmills and stuff, they tell you how many calories you've burnt. It's the same kind of thing, except now it's being applied. Now we're talking about gamification of apps, so it actually applies to software where you achieve things, and people love to achieve things.
Yeah. Well, and they like being told, You've done really well. Congratulations.
It's the whole positive reinforcement rather than negative. Except for the owl in Duolingo, which is quite negative.
Well, it threatens you, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think of apps like Habitica?
So I think that's the app that encourages habits, right?
Yeah. It's like a role-playing game, but to level up your character, you need to do things like brush your teeth every night, or
I think that's great. I mean, like doing the dishes, right?
Yeah.
Tidying up my bedroom, all that kind of stuff. It's actually habits, right? And anything that encourages that is actually a great thing if you use the force for good, not evil. So here's where it comes back to build habits for good. Don't make people addicted to gambling.
Yeah, well, they already are.
Yeah, but as long as I'm addicted to cleaning my room, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm happy with that. The positive reinforcement makes me feel good about doing things that are actually useful and just makes my home a nice place to live.
Makes the pain fun, right? Like, that's the idea. But what do you think about companies like Facebook and these big companies actually having psychologists work on gamification strategies that do take advantage of people's addictive nature?
I think it's fine, to be honest, because...
Do you? They're kind of taking advantage of our psychological weaknesses, though.
Only a certain type of person. And it's unfortunate that they're actually targeting... They're trying to make their platforms more addictive. But I think we've seen a big move away from Facebook lately.
What about... You brought up MMOs before. What about MMOs, though, where the grind... People get addicted to the grind, and it's interesting, you brought up weightlifting before, and I reckon there are people who have done more exercise in video games with their characters than they've done in real life. They've worked out more in GTA San Andreas than they have in real life.
But that has nothing to do with the game. That's all about the person, right? And for me, for instance, I actually have... I have a bit of an addictive personality, so I actually stay away from MMOs on purpose for a good reason. But lately, I've played with them, and I just realized that I could be working out in real life. So I don't know what to say about that.
So what about gamification with the marketplace apps and business apps? Is there any that have worked on you? I was thinking about this, and I can't think of one off the top of my head.
But isn't the whole point that you don't realize that it's working on you?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've never found myself grinding for a reward in Uber Eats. Because I think they have streak rewards, right? Which to me is almost like saying you're an irresponsible fat bastard.
I don't actually participate in platforms that have gamification. However, I can confirm that Reddit has started to introduce these badges, which are terribly ineffective at encouraging people to make specific comments. I don't even know why they put that in.
Well, because people pay for them. For our older listeners who don't read Reddit is a news aggregation site almost, and a kind of a forum. It's a forum.
It's a giant forum of everything.
Different communities all in one website. In the past, you could reward a comment that you liked with a gold badge.
Yeah, Reddit Gold. Yeah.
Reddit Gold, yeah. And that was actually, at the time, the only way they monetized the platform. So you would pay for gold and you reward it to good comments. Now, they do have advertising now, but now they've also expanded the badges to essentially every single icon you can think of. Yeah. And now, it's just still Reddit Gold. You pay for it and you give it to a comment. But I definitely noticed an uptick in the amount of badges awarded people. So it's actually the gamification in Reddit is actually the monetization.
Yeah, you pay to give badges.
Yeah, which I think is actually quite clever.
And it doesn't affect how I do things anyway, which is lurk and not make any comments. But at the very least, they can monetize their own platform.
Yeah, that's right. What's some good examples? You've got leaderboards. Product Hunt is one. GitHub has gamified, basically contributing to source code repositories. Let's have a look. GitHub leaderboards.
But it's such a, what do you call it? Not the main part of GitHub that you never, I didn't even realize that there were leaderboards, for example, and I still use it every day. So in a nutshell, a client who wants gamification in their app,
they should build the app first. Yeah, I mean,
understand your audience and and learn what makes them come to your platform, the platform that exists.
Ooh, so here's a good example of how to explain gamification. So parents use gamification to make chores seem like a game, right? So everyone knows that a kid would rather be playing on their Switch than, say, cleaning their room or folding their laundry. So I don't know how many parents know this trick, but if you actually get a ticking tock and challenge your kid to do their thing while the timer ticks down, kids are more likely to actually do it and quickly and enjoy it. So that competition of racing against the clock is gamification.
It's the competitive spirit.
Yeah, and feeling like you've won something, and that's what gamification is. Basically taking a chore, a really horrible task, and turning it into a competition somehow, and using standard game design to express that.
It makes boring things fun.
Yeah, everyone wants gamification. And like you said, clients come to us and ask for gamification, and they haven't even built their app yet. Build your app first. But you can totally gamify things, I think, without, like, that are not apps. And I think you can totally gamify things that are real world. Just like the ticking tock, like the countdown timer for your children cleaning their room. I think this method can be used on adults in real life situations.
I think ultimately just reward your customers with positive reinforcement.
Customers, staff, loved ones.
It's a good philosophy to have. Just don't use it for evil.
Yeah. Doesn't that apply to everything?
Gamification, especially so, because you're dealing with like people's money and that horrible feedback loop that you see people deal with gambling apps every day.
It's interesting you say loop. There's a phrase that people probably don't know called the ludic loop, which is essentially taking advantage of attention-based addiction. So slot machines are a perfect example of a ludic loop. You do it over and over again. Every once in a while you get a reward. Loot boxes, perfect example of ludic loop. Very controversial at the moment, and very hard for people to escape. I think they're trying to ban loot boxes in the EU. So people who don't know what a loot box is, John, do you want to explain what a loot box is?
It's a slot machine for a game with way more flashy graphics and sound effects. And instead of slot machines where you get coins and money, you get items for your game. So you actually get something useful, and there's a small chance of getting something that will give you an edge over the competition.
Yeah, and people get addicted to this, and they keep doing it. So they get caught in a loop. And people in the gamification world kind of see this as a holy grail. That's what you want. You want people stuck in the loop of doing the thing, especially if you're making money from it. Yeah. And I think we'll see more and more legislation over the next few decades, or even just the next decade, outlawing types of ludic loops.
I mean, that's because the loot box mechanic is it's become very popular lately, and it's just one of many forms of gamification that you can use in your platform.
It just feels like exploitation to me. You're exploiting people's weaknesses for money, which generally I think people kind of look down on, don't they?
Well, EA's revenue says otherwise.
Oh, I didn't say they don't get stung by it, but people are like, oh, that's not a nice thing to do.
That's the problem. For the vocal minority, there is the majority playing with these loot boxes. So there has been a shift against this kind of approach to building feedback loops.
Yeah, and actual legislative. Yeah, like the people are trying to bring in regulation to actually stop companies from doing this kind of stuff, especially to kids, because they definitely target kids at this.
Yeah, because it's easy and it works well with children.
All right, so predictions for the future. What do you see in the future of gamification?
Gamification has become huge and normal. And the thing is, with the whole loot box concept, it's a lot more common in competitive games and games that people spend a lot of time on. But when it comes to normal apps, I think you'd see things like Uber style points. But the point systems are very common. It's easy to implement as well. You have things like the streaks is a good example. Things that make you feel good about using the system. That will become a lot more common, and I reckon people will want it, and it just makes them feel good about using it.
Yep, I agree. So let's gamify this episode, right? So we're going to put a secret code word in this episode, and if you guess it and figure out where to go to put it in, we'll give you a free Tech Society t-shirt with custom artwork. What do you reckon?
Sure. This is not pre-planned, but I'll roll with it.
Okay, so you got to keep listening, and we will drop the clue later in the episode, and you'll email it to givememytshirt@techsociety.fm. All right. Thank you for listening to us riff about gamification. And now it's time for John's Tech Bench. Tech Bench. All right, what have you got for us today, John?
So in the 50th episode, I mentioned 3D printing.
Yes.
We interviewed Michael Tuckey, and he's created NewForge. He's the founder of NewForge, and they're all about additive manufacturing. So that got me thinking, what is it about 3D printing that's so exciting? And the only answer to that is to buy one. So I bought one.
Of course.
A few months ago, and I've been printing nonstop ever since. Now, the problem is I never really understood the appeal of it until I actually got one. And I always thought, what do you do with it?
So what do you do with it?
So you print things, right? But that's a broad comment, isn't it?
What do you print? What
Anything.
are you printing?
At the moment, my printer is broken, so nothing. However, I brought a few things today to express what I mean. Ultimately, whenever something breaks, you buy a replacement. Yes. Like it's like a bracket that breaks or a clip that breaks. And then it takes, in my case, from AliExpress 3 months to get here, and it's the wrong size or it's the wrong shape, right? But you don't have to do that anymore. You just print replacements and things like that, where you don't have to rely on other businesses supplying you things and getting it wrong. You can just take care of it yourself. And you could also encourage your own hacker spirit and building your own things. So a couple of things I brought today, which are pretty random. So I've got 3 things here. 4 things, actually, I think.
We'll put photos on the description of the episode. We obviously don't have cameras for this one.
Yeah, so I'll explain them as I bring them out. So the first problem is, what do you do with batteries? Where do you put them?
Well, you throw them at young children.
You just chuck them in a drawer, right?
Do you mean like dead ones?
Nah, just you know how you buy maybe like 20 batteries and
okay.
And you're like,
Yeah.
I'll just throw them in my drawer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but why? Well, I have here
a battery dispenser.
a battery dispenser. But you never think about it, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You basically feed it and you pull them out, right?
You've got AAA and AA dispenser there.
That's correct. That's correct. There's 2 slots.
Very cool.
And it's so basic, but you can't get this. And it's suddenly you can actually store batteries.
So no one sells this?
I mean, they probably do, but but no one would think to buy it, and you have to go get it from eBay, and no one does that, right? Just a little simple thing like that.
I think the technical word is neat. It's neat.
So second question, what do you do with all your cables, right? You just chuck them in the drawer, it gets tangled.
Yes. Oh, cable management.
That's right, cable management.
Oh, look at this. Actually, this is just isn't this for pens?
Nah, it's for cables.
I would have thought cable would have like the tie thing,
I mean, there's that stuff too. So the idea is that there's a website called thingiverse.com.
Okay, thingiverse.com.
It basically, people just upload stuff like this, their own designs. You got things like hinges, you got cable management solutions, you got brackets. There's all sorts of millions and millions of things.
Ooh, Iron Man helmet.
Iron Man helmets. It's great for cosplay. It's just one of those 3D printing lets you make things
that don't exist.
That's right.
That's very cool. Or at least don't exist because they would never be able to sell them at the actual cost.
That's right. It's like such a custom thing,
So what would, if you had to guess, how much would the filament have cost to make this cable management thingy? This
one wasn't too expensive, probably about $3.
Okay, that's not bad.
A kilogram of filament will cost you $25.
And how far does, I mean, that's a difficult question, isn't it? How far does that go?
Non-stop printing will take about a week. So a bit less than a week.
So you get a week of non-stop printing with a kilogram of filament? Okay, that's not bad.
And they'll give you perhaps
how long did this cable management thing take to print?
Roughly 10 hours. So
10 hours. Okay, that's pretty good.
So printing takes a while.
Yeah, but that's 1 kilogram for 1 week. That's not bad.
But it's one of those how long is a piece of string things.
Of course. You get more complex designs, right? Yeah.
But it's just, okay, here's another one.
What else you got?
So this is a personal one, but I had nowhere to put my soap.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I could have just bought a soap holder, right?
Yes.
But
it has a little
drain.
Little drain.
And it's sloped as well.
Neat. Okay, this is cool.
But it's just a soap holder. But I made it,
Is it? I actually have never owned a soap holder with a drain, and it's something I've always felt like there should obviously exist.
But it costs too much to make those kind. It's just that kind of I made this kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And not to mention, I didn't design this. These are all from Thingiverse, right?
Of course.
But this wraps into the 3D modeling hobby. So you can build your own CAD designs and create your own things.
Or you can just print other people's and not have to go to that kind of creative energy, right?
Yeah, it's that kind of cooperative shared hacking culture that I personally identify with very well.
So, for those listening, you have to find the 53rd word in this episode and then email it to givememytshirt@techsociety.fm. Do you foresee a world where you go on your tablet and you go boop, 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 and then like you send something straight to your 3D printer and boom, you've got the thing that you want?
In its current state, no, because it's still a technical endeavor. So you have to understand, XYZ motors. You have to understand like nozzle clogs. You got to fix it.
3D printer requires constant maintenance.
That's right.
Okay, that's a shame.
Yeah, but it's a huge step forward from 10 years ago where you actually had to build your own out of wood. So if anything, we've come a long way and it's just going to get better from here.
So what about retail stores where you go in and there's like your McDonald's digital ordering type thing and you go beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop boop and then you get a ticket and you leave and you go have lunch and then dinner and then lunch and then dinner and lunch and then dinner and you come back and you've got the thing.
I mean, there's already services that do that. 3D printing, like farms that print things for you.
But could you make a retail experience out of it?
It's possible.
Business idea 123.
It's possible. But I think one of the problems is that at scale, this will never work because at scale, this will cost too much.
But what I'm suggesting is not so much at scale. It's kind of...
It's custom, right? Custom stuff.
Yeah. But like, I don't have enough time to take on another hobby. But I would totally love to be able to print stuff like this soap holder. But I really don't want to mess around with 3D print failures and clogged nozzles and all that junk.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I haven't seen a retail one yet where you can actually walk into the store.
Is that a prediction though? Do you think we'll see that?
I mean, why? Why don't you just do it online? Because it's such a...
Well, because I think a lot of this kind of stuff is back to your dollar store, like impulse buy. So you don't go looking for it, but you see it and you're like, yeah, I want that.
But so this would be, like I said, a few bucks, right? So I'd have to sell it for $5 to make a profit. And that's actually a problem because the labor involved at the moment in the current state of things to make sure that it prints reliably and successfully, it's a lot of labor.
I guess and our expectation for even cheap knickknacks, the quality level is actually pretty high, right?
It is
I'm
very
noticing there's some like jiggy edges on your thing, which doesn't bother for this because you built it for fun.
It's not perfect. And
but if I spent $3 on that at a store, I'd be like, oh, what a piece of shit.
Yeah, I can get an injection molded 20-cent one.
Yeah. So 3D print still not at that consumer level, right?
But it's come a huge way from the wraps back in the 2000s.
In 20 years, do you foresee some kind of Star Trek style, fabricator in the lounge room?
I actually do. I mean, additive manufacturing, which this is. So this is called FDM printing, where you basically have a stepper motor, 3 stepper motors that melt plastic and just build it up. It's not the most reliable way of doing things. There are other technologies, and perhaps in the future there will be some more. And I look forward to the day where it just beams it in. I don't know how it works. I don't know, Star Trek style. That will be the next level stuff, the next level of not 3D printing. I wouldn't call it 3D printing. I just call it additive manufacturing at that point.
What about food? Do you think we'll start seeing machines that like print food?
Well, I mean, if you can't eat plastic, so maybe in the far future. But at the moment, the technology behind this kind of stuff is pretty basic. Yeah. You're just melting plastic and you're just pushing it around. I mean, there's no like atomic changes to,
Yeah. Well, no, there are. I mean, technically.
It's melting. It's melting it. So, yeah, you're just pushing goo around. It's pretty cool. I mean, and then now I could build things like enclosures for my electronics. It's such a tinkerer's mindset. But like I said, I didn't buy the 3D printer to make anything. I just bought it to make things.
John will kindly and helpfully leave all of the resources he used to put all this together, because it's very cool stuff. And if you're at all interested in 3D printing, these are all good guides to follow, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. You've made it to the end of another episode of Tech Society.
On this day in tech history, 18th November 2020, SpaceX's Resilience spaceship has autonomously docked to the space station with 4 astronauts inside, kicking off an historic mission for NASA.
Thank you for listening to Tech Society. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter at techsociety.fm, and good luck to everyone who entered the competition.